cut here, and then collarbone. Insert collarbone, then you can control. Okay.
What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another SK Wealth Academy podcast. This podcast is going to be about the topic of JP Morgan gold spoofer John Edmonds. And if you read my article on my new site, malamalama.com/WordPress, entitled 8 Unanswered Questions about the very curious case of JP Morgan gold spoofing John Edmonds, please continue to watch because I'm actually going to offer a lot more commentary than I offered in the article. So just don't think if you read the article, there's nothing new in this podcast. Not true. And also later in this same podcast, I'm going to give you a sneak peek into actual daily videos that I send to my Patreon. So if you're thinking about supporting me by becoming a SK Wealth Academy Patreon, well, you're going to get a sneak peek to show why my daily videos have been so valuable to helping people get through this period of economic lockdown. So stay tuned for those videos. So let's get started. Oh, before as well, if you are a regular visitor to my podcast, have never liked, commented, or subscribe to my channel, please do all those things. When you subscribe, please make sure you hit the notification bell. If you already subscribed, please go back and make sure that the notification bell is still turned on, because some people have told me that they notice they don't get any notifications. They said they clicked the notification bell, but when they check, it's been turned off mysteriously by the YouTube gods. So if you wonder why I ask people to do that, because number one, it requires almost zero effort, right? Except commenting requires a little effort, but just to like and subscribe, click the notification bell, requires 5 seconds of your time, but it really, really helps my channel out, because the more likes, the more comments. Please comment too if you've never commented before, because the more likes and comments and subscriptions my channel gets, it actually will push my videos out to more people. So it pushes my message. If you want more people to hear my message, you have to like, subscribe, and comment. That's why I say that. And some people say, oh, well, you said you're going to move to a different platform soon, the K.im platform being released by Kim.com. And that's true. But people will follow me and migrate with me there. So it's still incumbent and important to me to grow my base while I am here. So that's my PSA and self-promotion for the day. So let's get started. Okay, so what is spoofing? First of all, spoofing is something that is illegal in US markets, commodity markets, stock markets, but it happens all the time. It happens endlessly. And basically what that means is that when someone puts an order to buy at a certain price, and you know, a buyer and a seller have to be matched, right? Whether in the stock markets or in the futures markets with the futures contracts. And then a lot of times they'll say, hey, I'm going to buy a gold futures contract at this price at, say, $2,000 an ounce. But say the spoofers want to drive the price below $2,000 an ounce. So they put an interest to see if anyone is willing to sell at $2,000 an ounce to match their buy order. So they say, oh, okay. And sometimes they put a ton of buy orders, say at this price, $2,000 an ounce before the market opens. And they see like orders coming in, order executed, market open. So they say, oh, all these people are interesting. Okay, we got them now because we know there's interest out there. So it's just to test interest in the market for either buying or selling. In this case, I'm talking about the spoofers are putting buy orders, okay? But they can also do on the flip side, put sell orders to gauge interest. And this is illegal because you cannot put a fake order. If you put an order and then it has to be legitimate, you have to match if someone's gonna sell it at that price. But once they see that, they withdraw it, and sometimes it causes a vacuum. So now they know they can collapse prices, right? So they say, oh, look at all this interest. People really want to sell 2,000. So then they'll drop the price to like 1,990. And they'll make people see, oh, is there any interest here? Still interest. People are like, oh, I made my profit, I want to get out. And then they pull it again. And then they'll move it down. Let's see if we can get any action at 1,985. They do it, they pull it again. I have actually experienced this in real time on options on stocks. When I see a sell order for option, I want to buy it at that price. I put it in real time, exactly. I enter, click, buy. Poof! Immediately, the option price goes up because they want me to get this chase. Because everything's computerized today. Everything is done by computers. So for those of you that have your business degrees, your MBAs, your PhDs in economics, they don't teach any of this because guess what? Guess who funded the whole academic system that was based upon the Prussian system of obedience in America and then exported to the rest of the world are the richest financial families, the richest industrial families in the world. And if you think they're going to tell you their tricks for stealing money from everyone, you are so far gone in your gap between what is real and what is delusion that you will never understand anything real. So some people have asked, hey, I don't have any experience of finance, please explain this. So it doesn't matter, even if you have high pedigreed academic degrees in finance, you're not going to understand this because they don't teach. I got my MBA, they didn't teach any of this. They don't teach any of the realities of how the parasitic ruling class and how the 0.1 percenters that make all their money actually make their money. They will not tell you in school. Of course, my SK Wealth Academy online curriculum school is the only place you'll find because I tell you all these things. Another example of how they can manipulate prices in stock markets is something called quote stuffing. And basically what that is, again, once there's a buyer and there's a seller, you have to match at those prices. Think about this, if basically you have to allow those communications, right, between the buyer and the seller to go through for the order to execute. But what they can do by quote stuffing, because everything is controlled by computers, is they can flood it with like 10,000 bids or 10,000 every single second. And what that kind of does is, say you're trying to drive like 1 kilometer from point A to point B on the highway, and all of a sudden between that 1 kilometer, they just jam it with cars, so you cannot communicate, and that's called quote stuffing. So technology, although people always think advancements in technology is good, no. Sometimes advancements in technology are terrible, because in the case of the financial industry, it actually allowed the criminals to become much better criminals and stealing money from everyone. So let's talk about John Edmonds. Who was he? He was a JP Morgan banker that basically was arrested for spoofing gold markets. He was pursued by the US Justice Department under the RICO Act. Now, under the RICO Act, who else has been convicted under the RICO Act? The infamous John Gotti. If you're American, everyone in New York knew who John Gotti was. John Gotti used to give turkeys away to everyone during Thanksgiving. Like, he employed the same tactics as Pablo Escobar in Medellin in Colombia, that he did a lot for his neighborhoods, which kind of protected him from the feds trying to arrest him, because people loved him, because they say, hey, he does much more for us than anyone else in our communities, than the mayor ever did, than the governor of New York ever did for us, than the president of the United States ever did for us. So people loved Gotti. Also, Frank Lacasio, the infamous Gambino crime family, were convicted under RICO. So this is quite serious that the U.S. Justice Department was invoking the RICO Act to convict John Edmonds. Now, he was arrested in 2018, and if it's a usual standard operating procedure, which should be once you're arrested and you're awaiting sentencing, you have to go to jail. The difference between jail and prison is jail is a holding cell where you're awaiting sentencing. Once you get sentenced, then you go to prison. Okay, so I don't believe that John Edmonds is free. He shouldn't be, unless he got some kind of sweetheart deal as a banker for not having to spend time in jail while he's awaiting his sentencing. But I believe he is in jail, as he should be, because, you know, the infamous pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, of course, was suicided in jail when he was waiting his sentence, his prison sentence. So he has been in jail allegedly. Like I said, unless he was able to get some kind of sweetheart deal, is around walking free while he's waiting to get sentenced, which would be extremely rare. but in December of 2018. And since then, his sentencing has been postponed 4 times. So what's going on? Here are the 8 questions. Because they say that John Edmonds is squealing like a rat, and that's why his sentencing has been postponed so many times. But how long can it possibly take for John Edmonds to divulge everything he knows? Even the rats in the mafia that turn informant and give up all this information to help crime, to bring down crime bosses, it doesn't take them 2 years. By the end of this year, it'll be 2 years that he's not been sentenced and just in jail. Okay, so that's my number 1 question. Number 2, has Jamie Dimon, the JP Morgan CEO, or the former head of JP Morgan Commodities Group, Blythe Masters, been brought in for questioning by the feds about their possible roles in the gold spoofing operation in the bank? And I will tell you why I named those 2 people, because a lot of spoofing happened in the silver markets that Blythe Masters was overseeing when she was still at JP Morgan. So obviously she would have a lot of information about how that particular scheme was run, or she should, if she had any accountability for the trading of silver futures while she was running the JP Morgan the head of the commodities trading desk there. And again, given that the feds have gone after JP Morgan bankers under the RICO Act, this implies systemic criminal operations, meaning that everyone at JP Morgan knew about it and was in on this operation. That's the only way they could apply the RICO Act to go after these JP Morgan bankers. So what is the identity of these higher level JP Morgan executives, if it's true that they knew about it, which seems to be the implication of JP Morgan bankers being charged under the RICO Act, which is a federal racketeering act, usually reserved for like drug lords and mafia bosses. What's the identity of these higher level JP Morgans, like JP Morgan executives? Like I said, does it include Jamie Dimon? Does it include Blythe Masters? Since Edmonds' arrest, the feds have charged at least 4 more JP Morgan bankers under these racketeering charges. Michael Nowak, Gregg Smith, and Christopher Jordan have been charged. And again, what is going on with them? I haven't been able to find anything, only with John Edmonds. And if so, is it because John Edmonds is squealing that his 3 other colleagues were arrested? Because if so, then obviously John Edmonds' life is in danger. Oh, the 4th guy was JP Morgan Metals Desk Executive Director Jeffrey Ruffo, was charged in December of last year, 2019. So by squealing, I want to know, has John Edmonds received a significant reduction in his potential prison sentence? And lastly, JP Morgan bankers have testified that they learned how to effectively spoof the gold market and prices significantly lower in the futures markets from Bear Stearns, which makes absolute sense, because when Bear Stearns went bankrupt during the 2008 financial crisis, JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon stepped in and agreed to adopt Bear Stearns' massive short positions in the silver futures markets. So they would need to spoof the silver markets lower because they're taking over their short positions in order to sell those silver futures positions at a profit. So it would behoove them to spoof. So that's why I said they need to really bring Blythe Masters in for questioning, because she was overseeing all of that commodities trading when she was at JP Morgan. So I want to know if all these other cases also against 16 more bankers for the same spoofing. And these bankers are outside of JP Morgan, at Deutsche Bank and United Bank of Switzerland. Is this again a result of John Edmonds squealing? And with the feds bringing cases against bankers from many different global banking institutions, what is their end goal? What is the end goal? Because they've never done this before. So this is what I'm going to talk about in length right now. That is quite different than what was in my article. So there's only 2 possible reasons I could think of as far as why they would do this. Number 1 is they could just be yanking our chain, because this is not new news that bankers from all different international global banks manipulate gold and silver prices in the futures markets and cause artificial price declines of significant amounts, sometimes as much as 20-30% in the silver, the prices of silver assets. I've been saying for 14 years that this has been going on. And in fact, in 2009, I believe, 11 years ago, I had direct communications with a commissioner on the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, which is the regulatory body in the United States that regulates the US commodities markets. And I sent them data saying, here's indisputable proof that spoofing of gold markets and the New York futures markets is happening. And you know what his response to me, and that was actually a huge error on my part, because back then I thought, okay, regulatory agencies are going to do what they're supposed to do, stop criminal behavior instead of aid and abet criminal behavior. But his response, and once I received this response, the commissioner's response, I knew that I had made a severely bad move in the chess game, of revealing that I understood what was happening, because the commissioner wrote back to me, he said, you know why there's such a market difference every day? Because I live in Asia, right? So I'd always see the silver and gold prices in the futures markets here much higher. And then as soon as 8:30 a.m. in New York arrived, a lot of times there'd be waterfall decline. So there's differences literally in 24-hour trading sessions of $50, $60, $70, $150 an ounce between the price of gold in Asia and the price of gold. But I gave him like a whole series of charts that showed this is not natural reaction in any type of free market, that there's definite gold spoofing. His response, the commissioners, was no spoofing. China's manipulating the price of gold higher in the futures markets. That was his answer, not that the global bankers were in the New York markets spoofing the prices lower. And we all know that that commissioner was lying now, because, like I said, all these bankers have admitted to this practice for years during the time I spoke to this commissioner. So, and also his explanation made no sense, because if China indeed, the bankers were manipulating the prices higher in their Chinese gold futures markets, 100% of their futures contracts settled in physical gold back then during those years. Now they have a few products that don't really receive much trading volume that will actually settle a fiat currency. But that was a new development that only happened within the last 18 to 24 months. But back then, when I was talking to the commissioner, 100% of their futures contracts settled in 100% physical gold, which would make the markets 1,000 times harder to manipulate. In New York, where 98 to 99% of the gold futures contracts traded settled in fiat US dollar currency, thereby creating markets where literally the traders could trade hundreds of times more gold than actual physical gold existed to back that trading, which of course would make the market 1,000 times easier to manipulate. So once I saw that, I said, oh, I'm in trouble. And exactly what I thought happened. The state, meaning, the nations that want fiat currency to persist, and the banking family started targeting my business for destruction. And shortly thereafter, Google, who was also a tool of the state, because they received a lot of their initial seed funding from, I believe it was DARPA and the US Defense Department, they started pushing the listing of my company. I'd spent years optimizing my website at that time, which was a gold and silver research and consulting company, to show up as the third result well over 2 to 3 million search engine results on Google. I was the number 3 result out of 2 to 3 million results on the very first page. And then after I had these communications, I got pushed down to the second page, third page. Eventually they buried my company on page like 11, I believe it was, which means your business will never be found by anyone searching for your services online through Google. So they effectively killed my company. So what does it mean now, what they're doing? So number one, like I said, because the CFTC actually said they were investigating JP Morgan for spoofing silver markets just several years ago. And the investigation stayed open for 5 years. And there are people that immediately came out and said, oh, look at this. The commissioners really want to stop these illegal criminal activities that are happening in silver futures markets where they get spoofed. I said, what do you got? And some people I really respect because they're pioneers and actually talking about silver price manipulation. I really respected them. But still, I had to come out and basically oppose their notion that something real was going to happen from the CFTC investigation because of my prior direct experience with commissioners on the CFTC that I knew were once I revealed that I knew that spoofing was going on in the gold futures markets, my business was killed. So I said, come on, how can you be so naive? Just because they've given us lip service so many times before and never done anything. And sure enough, they kept it open every year. So we're still looking into it. We're going to bring them now. We're still looking into it. Year 2, year 3, we're still looking into it. Just be patient. We're gathering evidence. Year number 4, year number 5 comes around. They said we closed the investigation and there's no evidence that JP Morgan bankers ever spoofed the silver futures markets, which we know now, of course, is a complete lie, which I knew back then in my heart of hearts was a complete lie. But now that bankers have actually admitted to spoofing the market, and now that the U.S. Justice Department has actually arrested traders for spoofing the gold futures markets. You don't think they're spoofing the silver futures markets if they're spoofing the gold futures markets? Because I know all the bankers that have been arrested right now have only been charged with spoofing the gold futures markets. That's why I said they need to bring in Blythe Masters and find out what she knows, because I am 100% positive they're also spoofing the silver futures markets back then. So again, this could be just this charade, this dog and pony show. Keep drawing. It's been now 2 years. Maybe they're saying, hey, we're still working with him to bring down more people. Go to year 3, year 4, year 5. Some people say, no, I don't really believe that's true. And here's why I say we don't know. Because some people will say, well, look, you said that once they're arrested, they have to spend time in jail, right? Until they're sentencing. But this may be a dog and pony show. They say they may have told these bankers, hey, you're going to have to go through 2 or 3 years of jail, but that's better than going to prison for 20 to 30 years, right? So this is just a sacrifice you're going to have to make for us to put on this dog and pony show. Like we're really trying to clean up these markets when we have no desire. And you've made hundreds of millions of dollars probably personally from your spoofing. So don't sit here and complain you have to spend 2 or 3 years in jail. You'll be free. You'll have your huge nest egg. Once you get out, we're going to let you just walk. None of the perpetrators are going to be prosecuted. So this is what you have to go through. That is a very real possibility. The only other possibility of what this could mean is that if they're not yanking our chain, is that the U.S. actually wants gold prices to go higher, because that's the only reason they would be arresting these bankers for spoofing gold markets, if they want the spoofing to stop. And especially if they ever get sentenced to like 20 or 30 years in prison. That definitely means they want gold prices to go higher. So why would they want gold prices to go higher? Well, they would want gold prices to go higher perhaps if they realize fiat currency is done. And then also, I think their backup plan, as I've spoken before, is to go 100% digital money, which you wouldn't need gold. But if they feel like they can't implement that, and then they're going to have to back the dollar by gold, which is not a gold standard. It's very different than a gold standard. But at least that's better than a fiat currency. So even if it's a US dollar standard like it was under Bretton Woods, which all the history books and all our academics textbooks lie to us and tell us it was a gold standard. Never a gold standard. Just a dollar standard backed by, fractionally backed by gold. Not even 100% backed by gold. And if that happens, that's still better, but maybe that's what they realize they have to bring back for now to appease people so they're not dragged out to the guillotines like they did with Marie Antoinette. Was that her name? The Queen of France who they beheaded. Maybe they say we have to do this and that's why they're doing this. So that's the only other possibility. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Which is it? Are they just giving us the old dog and pony show? Is your regular modus operandus just to try to prevent us from revolting, and then they're never going to do anything and they're going to drag this out for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years and never do anything? Or is it because that the bankers realize maybe they have to make gold part of the overall global banking system? Why would they do that? Because I would always said in 1,000 years, if they, because number one, it's not a gold standard, because it's to keep, that's the only way they could keep the dollar standard in place. Just like go look at Bretton Woods if you don't know what that is, because the US still had control over all global currency, because they realized, hey, if China comes with this gold, 100% back gold yuan, then we're going to have to try to preempt that with a preemptive strike and then partially back the US dollar with gold to get people remaining on a US dollar standard. That's a reasonable plan because it doesn't prevent them from still controlling all the currency flow in the entire world. They go back to something like Bretton Woods when obviously the US bankers still had control over the entire global currency system under that. So let me know, which one do you think it is? Which one? Because either one is still not of 100% benefit to us. Probably the partially gold-backed US dollar is better than what we have now, so it's better than just playing us and yanking our chain, but that's still far from an optimal solution. And now, like I said, I'm going to leave you with a snippet of some of my recent gold and silver price predictions from the Patreon videos I send out every week to my Patreon base. So for all my patrons watching, thank you so much for your continued support. And I really, really am appreciative and grateful to all of you. As I've spoken to some of you are, in fact, I'm assuming the majority of you, since you want to learn this stuff, are really, really solid people. But some of you have gotten to know a lot better, especially like the $15 to $20 patrons, because I've spoken to you in person. That gives you a 30-hour Q&A session with me. So I realized how solid some of you people are. So hopefully we can build this base, right? Because right now, sometimes I'm a little bit pessimistic because I know the only language the ruling class understands is violence. So sometimes I think a peaceful revolution, which I strongly advocate, will not be possible because the only language they respond to is violence, right? So I'm just hoping that is not what the world will come to, that we can have this peaceful revolution of sound money. So thanks so much. And please do, like I said, like, comment, subscribe below, and always remain intensely curious. Have a blessed day.
It is July 1st, and let's talk gold and silver. Gold and silver, it appears, and I'm going to qualify this statement in a second, that gold and silver are on their way. Well, silver broke out strongly above the $17.80 an ounce resistance level I had spoken about for a while now, and it's trading at $18.23 as I speak. Of course, I mean spot prices, physical prices are always much higher, and spot gold prices are also above the $1,770 level I had noted. The breakout point, it seems to be comfortably trading at $1,781 right now. However, as I mentioned yesterday, tomorrow, because of the July 4th weekend, will be the last trading day of the year. For reasons I mentioned yesterday, I expect the U.S. jobs data to be exceptionally manipulated in a positive manner, which tends to be negative for gold and silver. So I would not be surprised if we see just one last push down in gold and silver prices in the spot market before gold and silver prices take off. How much? Not much. Maybe gold may retreat to $1,750 or around that point, and silver at above 18 maybe gets pressed back down below $18. Ounce back to its breakout point of $17.80 an ounce, or maybe even